Whoa, hello, and good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to SaffronSACAP's voiceover talk show. It's amazing to be back again on another Wednesday. My name is Giz Ojiako, and I am the Director for Programs for SaffronSACAP. I want to first of all say, before we continue with the show, our heart goes out to each and every one that has been affected by the terrible floods that we've been seeing around the UK. So please stay safe for those who have had cars, homes, and whatever ruined, but you are still here. We just want to say our hearts are with you and our thoughts are with you and your families at such a difficult time. And I know we moaned about the sun last week, but I'd rather the sun comes out so it dries up all that moisture and damage, yeah? So please stay safe, everybody. And yeah, we just to let you know, you are in our thoughts and in our prayers. So without much ado, like I said, my name is Giz Ojiako, and I am your Director for Programs for SaffronSACAP. It's a bit lonely today. I don't know if it's the rain, I don't know what's happening, but it's just me and you tonight, Yem. So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves and let's get the show on the road. Over to you.
Okay. Hello everyone. Good to have us in your space. Thank you for accepting us. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to someone somewhere in this wonderful, wonderful global village. Um, I just echo what Giz has said about the floods and the heavy rain. A lot of it has been sharp, short, but really, really full on. So please stay safe out there, and we'll continue to pray for everyone. Okay, yes, it is a bit lonely today, isn't it, Giz? However, I do know that Dee is going to join us and Mercy is going to join us. I suppose it's just the weather out there and trying to get home on time. So yes, definitely stay safe. But as always, I am your host on Facebook. So I look forward to the engagement. Please share. reach out to other people, bring more people into this family, because the more we talk about these issues, the more we're able to find results, outcomes, answers, hopefully, and hopefully solve many social issues and social problems. So let's move on. Up to you.
Okay. Thank you so much for that, Yemi. And today is the second week of it's a follow-up to our last week's show where we were looking at the correlation between racism and mental health and how it affects our young people and teenagers. Now, we started this show last week, and that was on the back of the backlash that the footballers got when England didn't win. And it happened to be three of the Black footballers who took the penalties and didn't get the penalties. So we obviously didn't want to just harp on that because we didn't see that that was the issue. What our issue was what happened post the match, and how it was going to, the impact it was going to have on our young people in our community. You know, you've got this amazing sport that, I mean, not everybody loves football, but you know, it does bring you together. Whether you liked football or you didn't like football, during that period, for the mere fact that England had got to the finals, everybody was excited. Everybody was up there. And then to have that end, you know, it was like we've all gone up, and then to come down and be brought down to earth with such negativity, you know, it did lead us to think, okay, what is going to happen to these young people 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 months, 3 years down the line? You know, how are they going to see themselves? Will they see themselves as part of this community? Will they be able to ever think they can play football again? You know, there's so many things that are going to go through the young minds. And as an organization, you know, we are very hot on dealing and tackling issues centered around our community that can affect our community adversely. And this was a serious issue. And that's why today, you know, I want to say welcome to all our Facebook viewers as well. You know, please feel free to drop your questions or, you know, any input you may have on this topic. So we're just going to have, you know, like we said, it's an open house, and we're just going to look at, you know, the possible impacts. And it's not just about looking at the impact. We need to be also talking about, okay, so this has happened. How can we deal with it so that we're not going to say it so that it doesn't happen again? Because to be honest, this has been happening for the past, I mean, donkey's years. But I think as a community, what we need to be addressing is how best can we safeguard, because that's what it's about. How best can we safeguard our youth, you know, and help them to be able to process and address some of what they face in the community with regards to racism, and how would that and how does that affect their mental health, and what are the what we know, how can we signpost them where they can get help? Because you see, as a community, it's not just about harping on the problem. We need to be solution focused. So we need to be able to look at avenues and pathways of how we can assist, you know, guide, support the youth and the young ones. At this stage, I want to hand over to you, Yemi, and I'm asking you to give us an insight just before Deborah comes on with her professional input, to give us an insight, because Deborah is our resident child psychologist and a social worker. So this is obviously her niche. And Deborah, as she did last week, is going to come on again this week just to give us some you know, professional tidbits. But just in a nutshell, Yemi, you know, we talked last week about, you know, some of the triggers and, you know, how it affects our youth and our young people. Are you able to, you know, for those that were not on the show last week, if you are able to just elaborate and give us some ideas of how and what the youth are facing and how it affects them adversely, please?
If we just actually start from a review of last week, and it was the correlation between racism and mental health. How does the experience people have, especially young people have, impact on their mental health, impact on their ability to function, impact on their ability to integrate or reintegrate? Because when something like that happens, you feel like it's one side against the other. But these young people, they relate every day. They have friends cross culture, cross religion, so how then do they reintegrate? And last week we had Debbie, our psychologist, and she came on with her son, and he's a footballer, and it was really good to listen to him. I don't know if I could say that I was not disappointed that people would actually behave that way, because it comes to a time you sort of get used to it. And what we were discussing was, how was he able to address it? How was he able to, what did he do? And he just basically said that when these things come up, sometimes you just have to really look past it. And I suppose that's the way that he addresses it, so it doesn't continue to impact negatively on his health and well-being. Also, we had Oyewale as well, and he practically also said the same thing, that these young people come across these issues, these scenarios, these cases every day in everything that they do. And that was our question: how do you treat this? Now, between yourself and me, and maybe a lot of people our age, we've seen it, been there, done that, experienced it. Water under the bridge, over your head, whichever way it goes. You just face it on
Yeah.
ahead, address it, speak about it if you need to. And sometimes the best answer for a fool and all that, silence. And just let it by, and concentrate on what your goal is. Focus on what you want to do, what you want to get out of life.
Yeah.
So I know, racism, mental health. I believe also Debbie spoke about Young Minds.
Yeah.
That was the organization she talked about. um, Young Minds address issues around racism, and I believe she said it's being treated differently, unfairly, because of racism, being treated differently,
Mhm.
unfairly, because of your skin, the color of your skin, your race, ethnicity, negatively affecting mental health. But I was also asking, shouldn't we add religion in there, within that definition? And that's my thought around that. So we had Yemisi Jenkins, who was on board. We had Councillor Fumi as well. We had quite a few people, and they asked that we come back today and continue this discussion, because it was a discussion we opened. It was like a pack of what do you call it? A Pandora's box we open,
Yeah.
and
Open
it just
it.
kept giving it just kept giving. And so that's what we're continuing to do today. Let's look at um black and yes, for the first time, because we Saffron, we actually focus on black um, and Afro-Caribbean communities, but we also included the Asian communities in this as well,
Yeah.
because this is something that we all face, and especially, and I think most especially in sports and in the workplace. These are the two places where this continues to rise. So let's look at this link between racism and mental health, and how to cope. We will be, Debbie should be joining us pretty soon. She sent a message, and we will be looking at how to cope. Please join us. I have posted links to the Zoom, and it's on our Facebook pages. Join us on here, join the discussion, and or leave your comments on Facebook. We will pick up all these questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yemi. Yes, I like how you pointed out it's in sports and in the workplace. And a lot of the reports we get, a lot of the when we go out into the community and we discuss with you in the community, this is the feedback that we are getting. A lot of it is in sports, a lot of it isn't. But you find it's funny, when we are winning, we are okay. But when we are losing, that's where we now realize that, hang on a minute, we're not part of where we thought we were part of. You know, you become, the ostracization starts. And these are the things that I think as a community, we too need to pick up on. You know, you had the Anthony Joshuas of this world in another life, in his past life, you know, the headlines screamed very different until he started winning. While he wasn't winning, he was a Nigerian British. And as soon as he started winning, he became the British Nigerian. And I'm thinking, right, in a space of how many years you've changed him from this to that, you know. And these are things that, you know, we look at and we think that they don't affect you as an individual. The fact that people don't come out and say that it's hurting them doesn't mean it's not hurting them. The fact that people don't come out and say that it's affecting them, it doesn't mean it's not affecting them. Words are very powerful, and words can take you from this to that. And this is why we have to be very careful the way we address people. You know, I also have the media to blame, because sometimes the headlines that the media throw out there, you know, people in the community grab those headlines and make it their everyday language. And when you're consistently hearing, you know, that language, you know, sometimes you can begin to believe what you hear. When you hear something on a repetitively, it becomes the truth.
Yes, it becomes fact for you.
It becomes a fact, and then you start that is where the imbalance, because you're dealing with is this really me? Or, you know, no, but I'm not like that. But then they say I am, so I must be. And then you go down that route, and, you know, it never, ever leads to a nice end. And these are the issues where we have to start speaking positivity into our children. You know, we need to give them positive affirmations. You know, telling your child the things that, it's not necessarily things they want to hear, but positive praise. And listen, not one of us parents can stand up here and say we haven't said a negative thing to our children in the heat of the moment or when they're naughty. We have all done it. So we're not out here pointing the finger at you, because 4 fingers are pointing back at us. What we're saying is everybody has a room to change. If your child is going out into the community and hearing a lot of that negativity, the last thing they need to hear when they come home is that same negativity. Because the worst thing that can happen is they hear the same negativity from their own family as they're hearing from strangers out there in the street, from the horrible people you find behind
like
the
confirmation, isn't it?
Yes, the online haters, you know. So it's about speaking that positivity into them. It's about correcting the impression, because our children are part of their environment. Yeah. So when we release them out, they go to school, they go to their friend's house, we're not there as parents. Okay. So we've left them, they're now on their own. And they've got to deal with the society, they've got to deal with the community. So that backlash we're talking about, I remember vividly, my daughter watched the football with her friends and said the way that they left that place. And she said she noticed Black people were just getting up and sneaking out, you know, and that scared me. And I'll tell you why that scared me, because it shouldn't have been like that. What we should have seen was a case where everybody said, oh, don't worry about it. Color should not have come into it. And for the mere fact, because we lost, you know, in another ideal world, I would have liked to have seen what would have happened if we had won. But on the other side, I'm thinking, well, if we had won, we may never have known the reality of what our kids and us face every day. And I am going to put a caveat out there, because it is not every single white Caucasian person that feels this way. But in saying that, when you stay silent and you don't call up your fellow white person or your fellow Caucasian for doing this, the silence for me is deafening. And I will continue to say this, that we must speak up for each other. And we're talking about the racism that our kids face. And in saying that too, we must also raise our kids in a way to not be racist to any other ethnic group, because it works both ways. So mental health is real. It's not a joke.
Yeah.
Some people come back from it. Some people never come back from it. And this can ruin families. It ruins generations. It ruins jobs. It ruins careers. It ruins lives. And as an organization, we say, no, we do not uphold anything that would lead anybody to have a mental breakdown. And racism is something that it's very subtle. Well, no, it used to be subtle. I think everybody's gotten a bit more courageous now. It used to be a very subtle tool in this country, but now there's a lot of courage out there. So it's not as subtle as it used to be. And this is why it's necessary as a community, as a people, that we learn the tools. I love what you said about the young man that was on last week. And he said, he was very, very, very courageous. And he said, I've been through it. And we asked him, and how do you deal with it? And he said he just lets it go above his head. And it's not going above his head. And I don't want people to think, oh, well, that's just a defeatist attitude. No. What he said for his own mental state, mental well-being. And I loved that, because he knows his boundaries. He knew what he can handle and what he could not handle. And then Oyewole came on and reiterated exactly what, I forget his name, what he said. So these were two young men, the young people we are talking about, who both came on at separate times, and they had the same strategy for dealing with the racist abuse they have received in their lives. And that blew me away. And I was thinking, I would have probably gone out there fighting, guns blazing. So to hear that from them was actually quite, it was soothing for me, because I sat down and I thought, you know what? Yeah, two wrongs don't necessarily make a right.
Right.
It doesn't mean we're not saying you should not speak out. You should. Everybody should speak out, and nobody should take anybody's voice. But there is a way in which you speak out. There is a way in which, and I think that was the message those young men were sending to the community last week. Please speak up, speak out. But it's the way. There is a process, and if you'd listened in last week, you would have listened to them. You would have heard what that process is. I don't know if we have Debbie on at the moment.
No, she's not on yet, but she also sent me a message to discuss and what she said was racism can cause or worsen some mental health conditions. So obviously, people have mental health conditions that they already are dealing with, and like depression. There's just a
Yes.
vast amount of young people dealing with depression. Trying to grow, come into adulthood. When you get into that 16 plus, the reason why in social care we have a special review for young people looked after coming out of care 16 plus is because it's going into the big bad world.
Yeah.
Um, and we have those reviews for them so that we can help them to manage, to cope, housing, and all of those. And those are the young people who are already getting care looked after. But look at young people who are not within that system but have continued to thrive and coming into that environment of growing into adulthood. They need that extra care. And if
Yeah.
they're not getting it because obviously they've not come in through safeguarding or child protection into the system, and they're dealing with, like minute depression, unsure of the way forward for themselves, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorders, substance misuse, substance abuse disorders as well. And not to mention some people with suicidal thoughts. And
Mhm.
then, just sort of coping with these, and then to be confronted with racism to add on to it. It just, that basically is telling a young person, you're not wanted,
Yes.
you're not valued, you're not respected, you do not matter. But I'm just saying it to every young person out there. No matter what they're going through, no matter what you're going through, you matter. You're important to somebody. You might meet 10 people on the road and they might not know you, but there are people who know you. And even if they're not talking to you, they're not reaching out, doesn't mean that they don't, that you don't matter to them. You do.
Yeah.
So whatever, when young people come across these racist issues, what we're discussing is, how do you cope? And it is, for one, just to know that you matter. You have a right to be at that spot where you are. You have a right to breathe the same air that everyone else is breathing. You
Exactly.
have a right to have for your voice to be heard. So it really doesn't matter what's going on. Just know that you have a right to be where you are, to be heard, and to do and fulfill your own dreams, your desires, and everything, your ambitions. Don't let prejudice, people's prejudices get in your way. Don't let their negative. I'm trying to look for some positive words, because sometimes these topics bring out some really really unhealthy
Unfortunately.
unhealthy thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yes, just I agreed with those young men last week. Continue to stay positive.
Hmm.
You have a dream. You have what your desires to achieve. Stick with it. Focus on those. Those are the ones that will speak for you. Because when
Yeah.
you're successful, you see that racism thing, like Giz was just saying, that if the young black men, when they weren't achieving, it was the Nigerian British, it was the Caribbean British, it was the Ugandan British, it was, but as soon as
You
you are
win.
successful, push, continue to strive for success, because as soon as you're successful, I beg you, it will be the British Nigerian. But please remember to change that narrative, that when you introduce yourself, start with the culture, the Nigerian British. Over to you, Gis.
And
I get myself in trouble.
something just came to my mind. We talked about where we're talking about, especially the looked after children,
Mm,
um, and not necessarily just the looked after children. You've got children who are in their homes who
yeah.
are suffering from depression. We've had COVID. Before COVID, we've had youth clubs being shut down. We have nowhere for the young people to go. So
Yes.
some of them are cooped up in their homes even before lockdown. There's nowhere for these young people to go. Sports is one of the activities that is so amazing for young people who are suffering from depression, who are suffering from some of them have what is agoraphobia. Getting out is a problem, right? The only way to lure them out is through sports. So you can imagine now you've managed as a support worker, a support worker, a key worker, even a friend.
Yes.
I'm not even going to talk about family, even a friend. You've managed to lure this young person out to play sports. This person gets seen by a scout. The scout says, "You are an amazing player. You are amazing. We want you on our team." Can you imagine the mental state of that young person who is now he feels or she feels loved, feels
Yes.
wanted?
Accepted.
You understand? You've now taken them from their black hole and brought them to the light.
Yes.
And then they're excelling. They're excelling over the years. And then they do what? They get a call up to a national team. And they're walking with pride and they're moving. Now, this was years ago, that depressed young person.
Yes.
And then they have the kind of knock that we saw a couple of weeks ago. Where do you think they're going back to? They're going straight back to that black hole. Now, this was the footballers, but this could have been any other child sitting in a classroom.
Yes.
The point I'm trying to make is the effect your racist abuse has on an individual. And it's not just young people, but we're talking about the young people today because that is who we are talking about, right? So I always say to people, remember, think of how you treat anybody. You never know anybody's backstory. You don't know where people are coming from. You don't know where people are trying to take themselves to. And a little wobble will stop them on that path. The whole work that they've worked to get themselves back from where they were to where they want to go, it takes one word: you're useless. You will never make it. See those words? We've got to stop using them. We've got to stop using them. I remember vividly, and I'm going to shout this out here. You people can laugh at me when I got my first GCSE and I was screaming my head off. I had only 4 papers. And I went home and my mom was looking at me like, what is it? Why are you crying? I only made 4 papers. And she said, and so what? And I stood there and I was like, okay, and from that day, do you know what I did? It made me work so much harder because I had friends that had scored very good results. And when we went to their homes and they told their parents about their results, and it was like, you got a B? What of A? And I stood there and I was like, I had 4 papers. And my parents were not like, and it's not that they didn't care, they cared about me. But you see, it is what you say to your child. Positive praise is everything.
Yes.
And sometimes we fall short of this. We do as parents, we do. Pressures, yeah? Guys, please remember what we said last week. Our parenting classes are starting in August. If you are struggling as parents, because I do. If you are struggling as parents, please reach out to us. I'm going to ask Yemi to put all our details on Facebook page and on the chat. Reach out to us. We are here to help. There is no parenting book. There is no parent is better than the rest, okay? Even when parents are not doing it right, do you know what is happening? They just require a little bit of help. #together we can, okay? So please, let's do this because we too have a very important role to play in the lives of our young people. And like I said last week, it's not just about your biological child. We need to learn to be the parent for everybody's child. And that doesn't mean you go into people's business. No, you can still look out for a child without going into their business. Okay, so let's think about it. And when you see a child that is visibly suffering, let's learn to be kind. Don't write them off. Oh, don't mind this one, they do drugs. You don't know what they do. Let's not be quick to judge them and write them off because we don't know whether that's the little thing that will tip them. Mental health is real. Let's learn to hold these kids in our palms and love them. We just want to welcome in the house our able director, Marcia. Marcia, good evening. I'm going to ask you to unmute and
hi, good evening. Sorry, I'm behind camera. I'm going to try and come off a little bit, but
hello.
Hi. Sorry, I'm late and I'm a bit of a mess as well.
Yes, okay.
Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. My name is Marcia Eliza. I'm the Director for Youth Engagement and Intervention, and I hope you're having a good time. We're continuing from last week, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
We are.
And the importance of our young people and their mental health. When I joined, Giz was talking about the pressures we put on our children academically in terms of insisting that it seems like the only way to go is by academia. It's quite important that each child is looked at his or her abilities rather than force them into something which we want them to achieve rather than what they're capable of achieving. And many times as parents, we want our kids to achieve what we didn't. Yeah. We want them to satisfy the goals that we failed to satisfy. And it's very important that we don't do that because this unnecessary pressure can lead them into another direction. You know, there are many kids, you know, sometimes they probably go off to uni and within a year or two, you know, they're struggling, but because you want them to get a university degree because you didn't have one, you insist that they stay on. And sometimes that's not the best for a child. So just a reminder that it's not always about academia. We need to look at the children and give them credit really on their merit, their individual merits.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you
so much. Thank you for that, Marcia. Yeah, it's very important that we give them credit. And, you know, even when a child fails, it's fine. And I'll tell you why it's fine, because when that child fails, you know, and what is failure? You know, I always used to say, so what is this failure? Okay, so I didn't reach the mark you reached. Is that really failure? I don't know. You know, that's me. I just look at it as, okay, I didn't do as well as you. Doesn't mean I failed, because I did to my ability. Do you understand? So we need to bandy that word around, but very loosely. But even if we're going to use that word, so what? What do? You say that's cool. Okay, you didn't get it. Okay, do you know what? Let's change the strategy. Let's try this because that didn't work. Let's try this. But don't make it like it's the end of the world, because some children they never bounce back. They never bounce back. And we need our children to bounce back. I always say to people that I have two sets of balls. I have my I have my rubber balls and I have my glass balls. And I'm very, very careful with the glass balls, because when they shatter, you can't get them back. The rubber balls, what do? They bounce back. So you've got to choose, you know, the balls wisely, you know. So, you know, we're talking about mental health and the correlation between mental health and racism. I had a discussion with a young boy I think it was last week. And when I came on the show, it slips my mind. He's come back to me now. And I was walking down my street. Well, it wasn't a discussion with me. It was something I overheard. And I was like, and he was talking to his mommy, and he must have been maybe 8 or 9. And he was like, Mommy, Dad, do you use bleaching cream? He was asking his mom. And his mother was like, no. Why would I be using bleaching cream? Okay, Mom, because you're fair. Mommy, I want to be like you, because he's darker skinned. I want to be like you. I want to be light skinned, Mommy. And I'm walking behind, and I'm listening, and I'm trying to, in my head, I'm trying to think, I wish I could have been a doctor to go inside this little boy's head, because, you know, you want to know what has, you know, preempted such, you know, discussion. And I love the way the mom handled it. And the mom said, well, you know, Daddy's dark. You're like Daddy. Mom is light, because Mom is like grandma and granddaddy. And I walked past, and I just did a thumbs up to the mom, you know, and she smiled. I didn't think it was totally appropriate to get into, because there were strangers. But, you know, the point I'm trying to make is, you see, we're talking about mental health. That child, probably 8 or 9 years of age, what struck in my mind was, what conversations must that child have been having somewhere before asking his mother that question? You know, these are the things. Yeah, I'm very deep like that with kids. I always want to know. Sometimes I see a child sitting down, and I really want to know what is in that child's mind. And I think as parents, this is the route we need to take, because once you are very concerned about what is coming out or what is inside a child's mind, you will be very concerned about what comes out of their mouths, and you will be able to correct any impressions that they have. Because if those impressions are not created, what they do is they fester. And those are the kids down the line that we will have sat in front of a social worker who is trying to unpick what has happened.
Or psychologists.
Or psychologists, exactly. More be a psychologist. The social worker will probably lead them to the psychologist, and it will be the psychologist trying to unpick. And by that time, the damage probably already have been done. And this is where we talk about early intervention. We talk about safeguarding, because we think it's a very, it's a priority, you know. And whilst we're talking about this, I think it's worthy to mention. I mean, I know we have people on Facebook. I just want to recognize, we have Ebere Konyaso. Thank you, as always, for coming on Facebook. Mama Alice Good evening, Ma. Thank you for coming on. These are our two top fans on Facebook. So I just want to say a big shout out to the both of you. And thank you for coming and joining in the discussion. Please feel free to put your comments and whatever questions you may have in the chat, and Yemi will definitely pick them up for us. So yes, for those, if anybody is still just joining, let me just reiterate the conversation for today is the correlation between racism and mental health. What I would love is for us, we've talked a lot about the problem. I want us to, we had two solutions from the young men, right? And the two solutions from the young men was, look, let it rise above us. Now, in real life, we know that not everybody is going to be as sensible as those young men, because somebody like me, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm going to let it just, what would you, apart from us letting it rise above us, how else can we tackle this issue of racism before it starts to, affect us mentally? Yemi, I'm going to throw that at you.
Do you know what? I just had question, but something's come up and said, can racism be passed down in the genes? I'm sorry, I'm really going to deviate from your question.
Can racism?
Yes, there was an article that I went to that I know I saw previously. So I've gone to it, and it said our children and grandchildren are shaped by the genes they inherit from us. But new research is revealing that experiences or hardships or violence can leave their marks too. Oh, I really, really, really want to have our psychologists, psychotherapists, you name them, on this one, because it is true though, we pass genes through. However, I also know that these type of behaviors are also learned.
Yes.
So they're learned, they are taught as well, because as I do know that there's some really, really, intense people who who racism is part of their nature, tend to continue to pass this on through generations.
Sure.
So it's quite disheartening or unsettling to know that um, it is taught, it is learnt, and then it can be passed through the genes. Now that is serious. What are your thoughts? It says for those who survive the harrowing experiences marked many of them for life, but they return to society with impaired health, issues, worse job prospects, shorter life expectancies, and it also had an effect on children and grandchildren. Do you know what? I'm going to wait for Debbie to come through, hopefully. But what are your opinions on that?
Blown my mind. No, but
Has
then,
blown my mind as well.
yeah, no, you've blown my mind. I don't know, Marcia, if you've got anything.
And I don't think I'm qualified to make any comment around being passed on by gene.
Yeah.
However, learned behavior, definitely.
Definitely.
In terms of children, they mirror what they see.
Yeah.
They mirror what they see at home. And not all of them, but most of them do. And you'll find that you can, okay, so for example, in the school, you know a child's behavior, and you see the parents, and you see where it came from in terms of their behavior, their thoughts, the thing. So yes, but in terms of passing down in the genes, I'm not sure I'm qualified enough to make a comment on that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to pull your strings a little bit, because I will post the link to that study, and it just makes interesting reading.
But can I also add that, I like how Marcia said learned behavior, but you can also unlearn the behavior that you find in your home or whatever, because I know I've seen families where there will always be one person in the family who is so different and behaves so different, acts so different, believes in totally different things. And when you have a conversation with that individual, you hear things like, I don't agree with their philosophies. I don't agree. So the fact that they are learning from that environment, you can still, if you are not somebody who lives in that, you're not always at home and you're in another environment, you're learning the opposite in your new environment, and you can take that into your home and be a totally different person to your family. So where you have these big families and you can see that, okay, maybe 6 people are totally racist, and then you have the one who'll probably bring home a black boyfriend to her, it happens. And then you'd be like, well, how come you're not? And you find that it's because she has unlearned the behaviors that she grew up with. And you see it in films. So, I think I watched it in a film. I'm going to try and get it on for next week so that we can look at it. So it's not just something I've made up, but things like that. And I think that's also interesting. But as you also said, Marcia, the genetics, I'm not even going to pretend that I know how to address that, because that scares me, because if you can be racially inclined via genetics, we have a problem. we have a serious problem, because you can learn behavior from an environment, but genetics, what do you do? So yeah, okay. I think we'll leave that for the professionals.
Okay. So let's pick up the coping mechanisms. How do we cope? How do you cope with being faced with racism? And the first one we have is relieving stress.
Sure.
Because it can be really stressful. If you've experienced that, just even breathe, shortness of breath comes on you, and and it, like you say, some people would, head on, it becomes can go into a fight, or you internalize it and you're trying to calm yourself down, and the shortness of breath, the having to, so relieving of stress relief techniques may reduce the immediate impact of racism on a person's stress and anxiety levels. So breathing exercises,
count to 10,
mindfulness mediation, Marcia, mediation.
Sorry, I missed that.
Exercise.
Sorry. And repeat what you said, please.
We're looking at, when I said mediation, we're looking at relieving stress. So using stress relief techniques to reduce the immediate impact of racism. So as in what that means, that we should know that we will encounter this. I think that's the first thing that it shouldn't come as a shock anymore. It's a shame, but if you know that, give or take, in 10 people you will find one person or 2 people, be ready for it. And it's also then, how do you address it? So it's the immediate impact of racism on somebody's, of a person's stress and anxiety levels, and breathing exercises and anxiety, to help with anxiety or panic attacks.
Yeah,
having to deal with that like 4 times a week, definitely.
Yeah.
But mindfulness or mediation, and that's what I told you.
It's also, if you're also that inclined, you've got to believe in it to to take part in it. Some people might think it's rubbish, and so it's not everyone would say, I'm going to do mediation to deal with racism.
No.
Some people would just want to keep fighting, fight back. So it's about your values. It's what you believe in. If you believe in mediation, yes, you'll do it. You believe in talking to someone, yes, you'll do it. If you're one of those people, and we do have a lot of them who, I would say chip on your shoulder, it's probably not the right phrase to use, but there's some people who constantly see everything as racism.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it isn't there, but some people look for it.
Yep.
And as soon as something happens, they pin it on racism.
Yeah.
Those are not the people who are going to go and find mediation because they want to have the issue, I'm afraid. And sometimes it does happen. And you find these are the people who you are more affected mental health wise.
Yeah.
Because it's so much on their minds that if someone looks at them too tough, as they say, it's because I'm Black.
Yeah.
It's because I'm Asian.
Yeah.
So you have to be that inclined to think, okay, this is an issue, it's out there, how do I deal with it? And as the young people say, just let it be, let it go, let it flow over you. But you have to have that strength within you as well to let it go. You can see it happen. I mean, I've experienced it where I smile. Just walk away and smile. You know it's happening. What's the point of trying to fight it?
Fight it, yeah.
You know it's there. You know it's about knowing who you are as well.
Yep.
And I tend to, my way of coping most of the time is thinking that person is racist. They're ignorant.
It's ignorant. Yeah.
It's ignorance.
Yes.
They've got the problem, not me.
Not me,
Yes.
exactly.
And I use that mentality to get meat to the spirit.
Sure. So I guess that's the message that needs to be put out to our young people. You know, you're not the one that has the problem. It's the person that is
the
racism that has the problem. And I think there was a lady who had a phobia of stairs on one of these reality shows I was watching yesterday. And there's a couple that help you with your phobias. And her issue was, as a young child, the mother used to go out to work and leave her, and she has to sit at the top of the stairs. So that phobia came. Now, what was the phobia? The phobia was her being left alone. It wasn't the stairs, but she made the stairs her problem. So for years, her fear of stairs made it that her house is a bungalow. She doesn't have anything to do with stairs. But I love what the lady said to her. She said, your problem is not the stairs. Your problem is the fear of being left alone as a child. So once the lady said that to her, she was able to conquer the stairs. And it's the same thing as what you just said, Marcia. The problem is not with me, but it's with the racist person. So whatever you say to me, whatever you call me, I'm not going to have a problem because I am not what you're saying. That's not, and it shouldn't affect me, but it takes an inner strength. So I think our message to the youth, our message to the young people, and our message to ourselves in the community who are victims of racism is, it's not you. You don't have the problem. So build that inner strength. And how then do we help our young people to build the inner strength? Because there's no point asking them to use the inner strength if they don't have it. And if they don't have it, we need to help them to be able to build it. So
this goes back to a session we had last year around identity.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
If you help these young people to identify with themselves who they are, they won't have a problem if someone tells, okay, someone calls you a racist word. You know you're not that. Because you know who you are.
Stones.
Exactly. So it's helping them to have that.
Sure.
Be sure of who they are and their identity and their culture. And that helps to build resilience.
Exactly. I love that. I'm just going to take a question. No, it's a statement from Ebere on Facebook. And Ebere has said, always think the highest. PT. I'm not really sure what PT means, but always think the highest thoughts. That's what Ebere typed. And you know what? Stay positive. You see, I've always said to my kids, whenever they come home, oh, this person said this, and I said, can you stay up there? Because once you're high up there, you can't see down there. So you miss all of that, but it is about building the inner strength. And how do they build that? Know yourself, the identity. And how do we understand the identity? I've always said it, and I will keep saying it. You must know your history. Berlin.
Are we going back to the Berlin?
Yes, we're going back to Berlin. 1884, guys.
84.
If you have not read that history, before you can even begin to talk about racism, you need to go and sit down and read it and understand it, because everything we see today in our community, that was, you see, a little seed, Jack and the Beanstalk. When the bean was planted, it was planted and up through that tree. You know, the seed was sown at the Berlin Conference until today, 2021, we are still suffering the effects of that roundtable discussion that we were not privy to. So we were discussed, we were the meat on the table, yeah? We were the steak, the rich, beautiful steak on the table that was being cut to pieces and eaten up, but we were not part of that dinner. That's what I'm calling it. It was a dinner.
It was a dinner, isn't it?
It was a dinner. They called it a meeting. It wasn't a meeting. It was a dinner, and Africa was the steak. You know, that's why I stick to salmon. I don't eat steak. You know, because it really annoys me whenever I read. Okay, sorry. Ebere said that quote. She said, "Always think the highest thought," came from Pastor Toure Roberts. Okay, so just for us to know, because it was a quote. It wasn't Ebere's. It's just something that she read and she decided to share. So thank you for that, Ebere. So back to what I was saying. So please, our identity. Who are you? Who am I? Who are we? When you know who you are. Yeah,
nothing can face
nobody and nothing can shake you. But where you will struggle with, so I was born in this country, yeah, to Nigerian parents. Oh, so you're British then? Hello, I was born here to Nigerian parents. That doesn't make me British. That makes me half Nigerian and half British. Get it right. Know yourself. But guess what? I align. Where do I align to? We all know where I align to, because it's my choice. It's my choice. So you've got to know who you are. And when you know who you are, you then don't get affected by what people say to you. No matter how bad it is they say, you have that inner strength to be able to combat it. But the way you combat it, like the young man said, let it go above you. And even if you want to respond, I always say to my kids, whenever they had problems, I said, you can be firm and assertive without being rude. Marcia made a comment now. She just said it's awareness.
Yeah.
Sometimes these people have so much ignorance. It's you'll be shocked that sometimes
you feel sorry for them, really.
The level of ignorance some of these racists possess, it's mind-blowing. Do I feel sorry for them? No, because we can educate ourselves. There are books. There's Google. Google is your friend. So when nobody has and that excuse of, oh, sorry, I didn't know. No, you do. You have refused to educate yourselves. So that in that stage, I would say, don't let them get away with, oh, sorry, we didn't know. Educate yourselves, okay? It's just like I say to us, you don't go into a community that you don't know without educating yourself. Okay, you hear sometimes I say to Yemi, help me with some of the pronunciations of the Yoruba names, because I am Igbo. I am proudly Igbo, and I don't always get the Yoruba tongue well. Therefore, I am very, very specific on how to pronounce the names, because it would be very, very disrespectful of me to mispronounce a name. It doesn't matter that I'm Nigerian, but we all have different tribes. Therefore, you can't come to me and say, even when I get the telephone, because I can't speak to Mr. I said, it's not me. Until you get my name right, get off the phone. Because I will spell your name right and I will pronounce your name right. So it's about education. So some of this racism that we get, it is lack of awareness. Educate them nicely. You know, be the bigger person. Everything doesn't have to be a fight. And I've always said to people, choose your battles. You heard what the young men said last week. Do you think those young boys cannot go and be scrapping and fighting? They probably could, but they have chosen that is not the strategy that they want to use.
You know, you brought me to that topic, and it is about finding support from friends, family, and community.
Yeah.
And I would already also want to say that these young men, be it that they're from families of people who are within the system, understand it and know how it works, and are able to support these young men better. But it is about the support, the knowledge, the support, education that friends, family, and community have. And see where it started. It was friends. So the circles that you move in, are those the
Yes.
circles that are keeping your mind healthy? Are
Mm-hmm.
those circles keeping you physically healthy?
Mm-hmm.
Are those circles keeping you emotionally healthy? And then it is your family.
Yes.
You know, we're still going back to these parenting classes. We've had so many people, coming and saying we can't wait for these classes, and they're registering. So yes, if you are interested, just drop an email. Just drop an email, say I'm interested on the page, or send an email or our WhatsApp groups. If I post a WhatsApp group on Facebook again, I'll be banned. I was banned for 6 days the last time, so I won't be posting that. But just drop a message, inbox us, and we'll be able to connect you with the parenting group. But it is fast filled up, really. But yes, going back to that, it is the family. Your family is a strong bond, and the support that young people get from their family is so important. If you have negative vibes within the family, young people would then want to go out, and what they're looking for are positive vibes. And wherever they get those positive vibes, ding dang, it's not always very healthy. So it's down to us as parents to understand the issues that young people are going to. Like I said at the beginning, it's okay for us because we have grown thick skins. Let me put it that way. These are our skins. That's why I made vitamin D3 and melanin, whatever they call them. They're thick skins. We have grown thick skins to some of these things, and it stares you in the face. Just I beg, carry yourself, come on, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Just please move on. I have a target, I have a focus, and that is where you're not going to derail me. You do
Sure.
not matter. Your negative thoughts really do not matter. But you have young people who are still growing up. They're not like, we're 30 years ahead of a lot of these young people, and they need that extra support within their friends, within their family, and then ultimately within their communities.
Yeah.
So it is suggested that um, having strong support networks can help young people with to better cope with the
Yes.
impact of racism on mental health, and also talking openly. Obviously, this is what we're doing about racism and racist experiences, with those other people who have experienced it as well, can help them work through the feelings of stress and frustration, and also anger. You know, we've talked about stress, frustration, anxiety. Anger is something, just listening to it, me saying it, it's like, yes, people get really angry, to be experiencing, say, hello, what happened? How dare you? This, I have a right to be here. Yeah, I can understand why people get angry and then retaliate, as opposed to is it react
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
retaliate, and they're two different things. So
React and respond.
yes, what did you say again?
I said react and
React and respond.
yeah.
That's the phrase I was
Yeah.
looking for. React and respond. So are you going to react in anger, or just respond calm and knowing who you are and what your purpose is, and just focusing on that? Hello, Dee. Oh, hello, Jacqueline. You've been silently
Ah,
watching us from there, and I see you.
yeah. How are you guys doing? I've
We're
been
good.
listening.
We're good. We're good. Lovely to have you ladies on board. Good evening.
Good
Sorry,
evening,
sorry,
guys.
I'm late.
It's
Ah,
um,
Dee.
it's
I'm
good.
going
Good
As
to just
usual.
evening.
find both of you because
No, it's a
I need a glass
beautiful.
of water. So I'm going to find you.
It's a
So
beautiful one, as usual, that you guys are talking about this evening.
sorry.
And I must say that it is not just a situation that you might find in diaspora for you Nigerians who are out there. Even at home, you'd find that we are struggling with this mindset, especially with, is it
Gen Z now, or is it the,
Yeah,
Gen Z? Yes, or is it Gen X? I don't know which one of them, but
Gen
these,
Z.
yes, these young children of nowadays, and you cannot blame them. We've helped them in a way, or in a manner of speaking, because they've heard us glorify, um, you know, traveling, or if you're there, even though it's the truth, unfortunately, where systems work.
Yeah,
And these children grow up with the mindset that there's nothing for me here. I
yeah,
cannot become anything if I remain in Nigeria or even Africa. In some
yeah.
instances, if I don't travel out, if I don't go to the white man's land, there's nothing in it for me. And it's sad because there is some truth to it. How I wish that it was just a mindset, but it isn't, which makes it even sadder. It's not just a mindset. But I must tell you that the effects of all of this we're going to be living with, or the world will have to will have to grapple with long after
No,
we are gone.
yeah.
Long after we're gone.
Hmm.
Because we have a generation of children who do not know how to speak their mother tongue, but are intent on knowing how to get the nuances, the right pronunciations, just the right way, the accent
Mm,
even
mm,
of the Englishman's tongue. No
mm,
pride in whatsoever. In fact, I see more pride. Funny enough, I see more pride in the children in diaspora than the children here in Nigeria. You
mm.
call the average child here and you want to start talking about Nigeria, you hear, Mommy, please don't depress me. Just leave me. I just pray to God that one day you guys will be able to send me out, or, or maybe my uncle will this and all of that. It's really bad, though. I'm telling you, we have a huge problem on our hands. And
Mm.
as a matter of fact, while I understand the burden and the mental torture that a lot of young people go through in diaspora, knowing that we are great people, and yet people watch you. I was watching this series called New Amsterdam, and there was this particular episode where a boy had a 16-year-old had high blood pressure. He had a multitude of diseases, and it was only they checked his body, checked his thyroid, checked this, checked that. It was later on that the psychotherapist was able to come down. He started asking him questions. When you go to the store, you feel you're being watched. The boy said yes. They had tried everything. They put him in the MRI scan, blah, 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 blah. It was in that particular episode of New Amsterdam that I realized that it is not even just mental health, even physiological health. Our
Mm.
children in diaspora are suffering even more than we know. And yet, is it not a conundrum that with all that they are going through in the white man's land, these children are prouder of their continent than the ones who you might have said, okay, they are at home, and so therefore they should be the proud ones. You understand? We've not lost. We're here. We are on the mother continent, and we are going to fight it out and do great. No, the children in diaspora actually they bring out that African pride more than those who are at home. So it is a conundrum. I've been listening, at least since I joined, I've been listening keenly. It's not just mental health. You find these children, I wish could have sat down to write down the questions this man was asking the boy, because I think it is something that children in diaspora need parents to ask them, because you can talk about it. He said, when you are in school, you have a need to speak softly, even when you feel excited. The boy said, yes, check, correct. He just said to the boy, be saying yes and no to whatever sentence you feel fits you. I will look for that episode and just particularly send it to the platform so that you can watch and see what, they say life imitates art, but I think, okay, well, let's just say art imitating life in this particular instance. So for me, it opened up my eyes to what Black children in diaspora go through. And yet, through it all, they continue to rise. They need a pat on the back. And even more than that, they need to understand that they are the ones who are even carrying the weight of this continent, the pride that we should all be feeling. They are the ones carrying it even more than those of us, or the children, let me say the Gen X that, or Gen Z, that are on the continent. So well done, ladies. I wonder why I'm not seeing as many people on the Zoom, but maybe we'll need to do more.
We've had floods.
More drives. People need to hear what you're saying. People really need to hear what you're saying. It's a great one. Thank you for this awareness. Yeah.
Thank you so
much, Jacqueline.
Ooh, Dee. Oh, do we have a lot of questions for you? But Yemi, you know the one we talked about, the genetics. Can we throw that at Dee and see if she can shed light? Because I really want to see.
Okay, that was the report that I read. As I like to educate and confuse my own brain, but it was that racism can be passed down genetically.
Sorry to interject you. Shegun, we didn't recognize you.
Oh.
You went off. You're back on again. Lekon, if you want to unveil.
You got 2 minutes to speak.
Just to say hi to the house. Hi,
hello.
Lekon.
Hi, good evening.
All the way from Abuja. Do you want to introduce yourself?
It's better. No, I'm fine.
He's all right. He's fine. Let's go to Dee.
All right. Thank you, Lekon. Thank you. Thanks for joining. Dee, over to you.
Okay. So you were saying something about genetics?
Yes. It jumped at me. I know you sent me a message and I filtered through to there, but what the report was saying was that racism, like I said, experiences are learned, but this said it passed through, it can also be passed through genetics. And that is a scary, really, really scary thought. And I think, like we said, this can be learned, and Giz also pointed out, and I think also Mercia, that it can be unlearned. But how do you ungenetize yourself, if there's a word?
Oh gosh, you're totally right. I think a couple of weeks back I shared some research into the link between slavery and depression and other mental health problems. And what that research, just to kind of give you a summary, was that so basically the idea was that the kind of oppression and the sort of treatment that Africans had endured way back in the time of slavery. You know how you pass on things from generation to generation? Some people have family stories that they pass on and they say, oh, my mother told me this. And the mother says it was my grandmother that told me this. Well, that's the best way to kind of look at that effect, where whatever the conditions were at that time for that particular group of people, they have been able to almost pass it on through their family line, to the point where even now in a lot of Black people, it is there is a link to the times of slavery. I think that's the easiest way to try and put it. And I just want to quickly say that I'm very sorry for coming in late. I am so sorry. I did try to come in earlier, and I know that I've missed a lot. But if it's all right, I just wanted to comment on, I think it was Jacqueline that spoke last, and to say that I totally understand her comment about children in, I'm going to use Nigeria because that's what I know. Children in Nigeria, my children went to school for about a year or two in Nigeria. And I remember when I met some of their friends, I would say, oh, is he American? Oh, where is he from? My son would be like, nope, he's never left Nigeria before. Like, where's that accent from? I used to be so confused. And yeah, of course, there were some who had traveled and everything, and like him who came from the UK or those who came from Canada or whatever. But there are a lot of Nigerian children who have not stepped out of Nigeria. The parents might be wealthy enough to send them to good schools and whatever else, but they so want to be like the children that are outside of Nigeria, to the point where when you talk to these children, honestly, they sound like they came from outside Nigeria. But you know what? I'm not going to fight them for that, because who doesn't want something good, what they perceive as something good, right? What I feel that parents and educators and guardians and, teachers, whatever, need to really focus on is how we build self-esteem. Because even with our children over here, it's still the same thing, building self-esteem. And what is self-esteem? What does it mean to say, you need to have self-esteem? Yes, self-confidence is one of it, but self-esteem, you get there by knowing who you are. And it goes beyond just knowing that I am of African descent, or I understand my culture, or, and I will say this, it goes beyond I can speak my language. Why do I say that? African Americans don't have a language. They have the American English language, even though a lot of them are starting to learn about their roots and their history and whatever else. The truth of the matter is that your average African American does not have a language, but do they understand their roots, their history? Yes, they do. So my argument always goes beyond language, because you could be speaking any language, but do you know who you are? Do you know what you stand for? Do you have boundaries? Are you able to maintain and protect your boundaries? So when something is against your person, are you able to say no here and no more? Are you able to do that? Because I think that's what we really need to infuse into children. But like a lot of things, you teach it by showing it.
Sure.
And I think if they see that we can demonstrate that kind of behavior, they're able to kind of copy it, just like they copy a whole lot of other stuff we do that sometimes we don't want them to copy. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I think this topic is going to run next week as well, because I love the fact that we're now going on to the solution. So we know that there is an effect of racism on our young people's mental health. And I know now for the next couple of weeks, what they need to hear is how can they, what can they, and what you said now, Dee, is awesome, and it is more than just you're African. You are very right. We said earlier before you came on, we're talking about that inner strength based on what your son said last week and Oyewole about how they would respond to racism. And they said, it wasn't a matter of just them letting it go over their head. No, because if they wanted to react, which they could have, they would have chosen, but they decided to respond. And the way they responded, I found, was very, very matured. So I think what we would be focusing on from next week's show would be about building their self-esteem to be able to deal with. Because you know what, guys? Racism is not going away.
No, so how do you deal with it?
Exactly. So and I love what Jacqueline also said, it's not peculiar to the diaspora. Does that make sense? It's not peculiar to the diaspora, because let's be real, if we're talking about Nigeria, when we're talking about Africa, there is still racism. So it's for the young people in Africa as well. They could learn from this. How do we build and raise their self-esteem to be able to combat this? So I think, with 4 minutes to go, I think that's the message we're going to be putting out there. We will be back next week and we will be talking about how can we build your self-esteem to be able to combat the effects of racism and make sure it doesn't reach the mental health. And then if it has already affected you adversely in that way, then we need to be, giving out the message that there is help out there for you. Yeah? Okay. I'm going to have to run now. I have a little bit of an
You can close. We're happy.
I can close. Okay.
Yes.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay, that's 4 minutes early. No, it's been amazing. It's been a topic that we, is very close to our heart. It's something we have been researching and we'll still continue the research because there are still areas around racism and mental health that haven't been touched on. And I know Dee is coming back again next week. Aren't we, Dee? Hopefully we shall have.
You put her hands in.
We're gonna train her from where she is. We're gonna tie her down, so that we can have your expertise because there are some questions that will definitely come up during the week that we would want to address. And as always, Saffron, we want to give you the correct information. We don't want to blag it. We never have blagged it, and we're not about to start now. So at this juncture, I just want to say thank you to all our Facebook viewers, to Ebere, to Mama Alice. Thank you so much for joining in and for listening to us. And we hope to see you next week. Thank you all the way from Nigeria, Jacqueline. Marcia, thank you so much. Lekon, all the way from Abuja. Thank you, Dee. Thank you as always for your expertise. Yem as much.
Yay!
Yeah, there you are. Thank you so much. Thanks for your input. Yeah, and we'll be back next week, I guess, boss.
Yes,
yes. With the same topic, but there we will be looking at solutions.
Yes,
yeah?
It is. I believe our topic for next week is know who you are.
Yeah.
And it's building resilience and confidence.
Brilliant. You heard it from the horse's mouth. Though she's not a horse, but you know what I mean. So please, guys, stay safe. I hear we're having some more rain, but please, stay safe. Like I said at the beginning, for those of you who have been adversely affected by the floods, our hearts go out to you. Please stay safe, and we will be back next week, same time, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on the VoiceOver Talk Show. Have a good evening, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
you.